So, hello, this is Yuris Kaja in Riga, Latvia, coming to you again after a while, after having been away from video blogging. As you can see, my iconic posters in the background have been taken down because they kept falling off. I think I mentioned this in my last blog, which I filmed in a rather un-cinematic position in front of a window. But anyway, to get to what's happened here in roughly the last month or so, first of all, politically, we see a major effort by the Conservatives, the National Alliance, to try to use the Latvian Constitution to reverse a decision by the Latvian Constitutional Court late last fall, I believe it was in November, that granted parental or paternal leave rights to the same sex civil partner of a woman who had recently given birth to a child. The Latvian Constitutional Court ruled that the equal protection of the laws guaranteed by the Latvian Constitution and also by European human rights documents and precedents in European court decisions meant that a woman who was the partner of a person who had had a child, a female obviously, was as her uh, partner, even though they have no legal bond, was entitled to this parental leave. Essentially, this was a kind of backdoor legitimization of same sex relationships and perhaps a step toward the legalization of what we call the cohabitation or partnership law here in Latvia, which again keeps bouncing off the wall here because of opposition by conservative and sort of religious conservative people, both in the Latvian parliament, the Saima, and in society. So basically, the amendment to the Latvian constitution that would exclude same sex people from having families and that would define the family as having a male uh, father and a female mother is sort of worming its way through the legislative process. It will probably have a hard time, and it may not, hopefully, receive the two-thirds vote required in the Saima or Parliament for a constitutional amendment to pass. Although there have been precedents for some pretty weird things to go through the Parliament, such as the 2005 amendment of the Constitution that defined marriage as only between a man and a woman. This was sort of the first step in what I would say was a paranoid and religious fanaticism inspired move to repress a very small minority of people in Latvia who are otherwise productive and who are otherwise tax-paying, productive, and even patriotic members of Latvian society, as are the two women who were the direct and indirect plaintiffs in the Constitutional Court case, which of course created an uproar. I mean, how can you do this? How can you call same-sex people a family, even if they are in practice and as a matter, as the court formulated, as a matter of social reality, they exist and they are entitled to all of the rights and protections of the Latvian Constitution and the European Union law as everyone else. Uh, However, people who are scared of this and are desperate to change it are now trying to reverse it. And the same people who are blocking the partnership or cohabitation law called dzīvesbiedru in Latvia, which means sort of life partner law. Sounds pretty nice. Anyway, that is what's going on sort of on the political front. The other front, or actually the war, is the one with COVID, and we are still in emergency, and the emergency has now been extended until at least the 6th of April. All of the statistics that determine whether restrictions and emergencies and whatever will be kept or modified, all of those statistics don't look very good. We have a, you know, more or less 1,000 people in the hospital, and more or less around 100 of them in very serious condition, the kind that require intensive care, oxygen, ventilators, whatever. So the hospital system here is under considerable strain from this. Um, the solution to all of this, vaccination, has both at the Latvian local or national level and at the European Union level, has basically gone into a kind of moderate Charlie Foxtrot mode. You all know what that means. The European Union seems to have been rather late in ordering vaccines. The manufacturers, particularly Pfizer, have had production delays. In Latvia, the former Minister of Health apparently failed to take the opportunity to order a rather large number, maybe like 1 million or so, I don't remember a precise figure, of Pfizer vaccines, cut that order back to only about 100,000. And that, of course, would even look worse if Pfizer was able to deliver, but not delivering. But Pfizer is not really keeping up with deliveries all across Europe. Now, AstraZeneca has been found to perhaps be ineffective against the so-called South African variant of the virus, and it is not advisable, or so some experts say, for people over the age of 55. And the new Minister of Health, Daniels Pavliuts, who comes from the same political party as did Ilze Vinķele, his predecessor, who had to resign after this sort of vaccine scandal. He has scrounged another 167,000 doses of Moderna vaccine, which he says will be, I think, delivered in March. But anyway, any kind of serious vaccination in Latvia is going to start taking place only in the second quarter of the year, basically meaning sometime into the summer. Pavliuts said that he hopes to have 70% of the population vaccinated by the end of summer, whatever that means. But if you sort of look at the way things run here in Latvia, summer ends when school starts, and school starts on or about the 1st of September. So we'll see how many people are vaccinated by then. They also launched a website where you could sign up to be vaccinated. That thing immediately crashed and was down for about a day. It also crashed the main authorization site. Nobody thought of this. It's sort of like a gated community. If you have a gated community with like 25 or 30 houses inside the community, and one of the houses decides to throw a huge party, basically inviting the whole country there, which is what the sign up for vaccination amounted to, then the gatekeeper, the poor little guy sitting in a booth and raising the thing to let people in and out, suddenly finds that there are thousands of cars waiting to get into the gated community, and of course he's paralyzed, and that is what happened. With this website, manavakcina.lv, myvaccination.lv. But I signed up, got confirmed as being on the list, and so did a lot of other people. This was fortunately all over with in about less than 24 hours, which is a rather good performance for your typical Latvian screw-up, though they tend to last longer. So that's where things stand now. Now the government is trying to figure out how to draft protocols for a sort of semblance of return to normal life, but social distancing and allocating large spaces per customer in stores and all of that. However, they did lift the ban on the sale of a range of non-food goods in supermarkets, which a lot of people found to be absurd, because they could go in and they could buy, say, a notebook, a coloring book for their children, but they couldn't buy the crayons or the pens, or even the pen with which the older child could write something down in class or during class when they were online. So you have these kind of rather absurd restrictions, which are now, at least as far as large supermarkets go, being lifted at the same time as the number of people allowed into these large supermarkets is restricted by a higher area requirement, 25 square meters per person instead of the previous 15, which is in turn leading to people sort of milling around in minus 15, 20 degree weather in front of these stores, crowds forming. This is what was they hoped to avoid. They don't want people mingling around in crowds, either inside or outside the stores. So you now have crowd control problems there, and they have not yet decided as to whether to lift or extend the 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfews that have been imposed on weekends. The result of these curfews was hundreds of cases of curfew violations, of people being hit with 50, 100, even 1,000 euro fines for gathering or violating curfew or disobeying the police or whatever the story was, which, of course, sort of jams the administrative or misdemeanor court system with all these cases. And B, a lot of these people who are out wandering around clueless during the curfew are not exactly able to pay these fines. So what Latvia ends up with a list of hundreds of deadbeats who are alcoholics or a curious Latvian name for them, alkonauts, who are never going to pay, or they're indigent students or whatever. But hopefully that will be resolved, and hopefully we will get rolling with vaccines. I am a bit kind of glad, but also a little bit envious that people of my group of advanced youth in the U.S., classmates from high school and so forth, they are already cheerfully announcing that they have been vaccinated, in Massachusetts or New York or wherever they live. But here in Latvia, it's still sort of lumbering along. Well, we'll see how all that goes. So for now, and without my Woodstock poster and my V for Victory poster, which are rolled up and put away, and can figure out how I can put them back again, this is Juris Kaja signing off from Riga.